Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? People are joining us. So, if you please type in the chat box whether you can hear me or not. Yeah, greetings. Very good. Okay. Very good. So, hello, everyone, wherever you are and whenever you are. This is Mo from Educast International, and I'm joined by wonderful people from different parts of the world. The first one will be Dr. Ron Murray, the educational consultant of Educast International and Syntax Solutions. Hello, Dr. Ron, are you there?
Hello, Mo from Germany. Yeah, hello, everyone. Hope everyone is having wonderful Ramadan nights.
Yeah, hello from Egypt. And we also have another, special guest today. Of course, he's not a guest, he's a part of Syntax Solutions. So, Mark, are you there? Hello, Mark.
Mark, your sound's not going.
Yeah, we cannot hear from him. That's bad. Okay. Well, we have another guest from another country in Europe, right? Let me introduce him to everyone here. Jake, are you there?
Hi, I'm here. Hi, everybody. I'm Jake. I'm in the Czech Republic right now.
Yeah, very good. So we're going international, right? Different people from different countries. I'm in Egypt and you're in Czech. Dr. Rain is in Germany and Mark is in the Netherlands. And of course, we have wonderful people from different parts of the world joining us here. Yeah, very good. Okay, so everyone, let me welcome you to our Ramadan event, Elevate Your Teaching Practice 2023, sponsored by Text Inspector, Fluent Ties, Delta Bookstore, and Syntax Solutions. So let me tell you a little bit about our event. Second. So this is the third webinar of our event, Elevate Your Teaching Practice, that has started, in the 16th of March. So our first webinar was presented by Dr. Ron Moraine on graphic facilitation being uploaded on our YouTube channel so that you can all watch it again. The same thing goes with the second webinar that was, presented by Connie Karma from Greece. It was about STEAM in education. And today we have another webinar. That's the third one with our wonderful guest, Jake Young from fluentize.com. So in today's presentation, Jake, the creator of lesson plan resource fluentize.com, will explore and give 5 of his tips to help English language teachers take the lesson plans to the next level and help them have a lasting impact on their students. So, hello, Jake. I'd like you to introduce yourself to everyone here and introduce Fluent Ties for the people here. Could you please do this?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, thanks, Mohammed. I appreciate the introduction. So my name is Jake. Yeah, I'm the creator of fluentize.com, it's a resource for English language teachers who have teenage or adult students. And basically what we do is create lesson materials based on real world authentic videos for these teachers. So we take videos from YouTube and we create lesson plans based on the topic and the language content the video. So I'm going to share my screen with Canva, if I may. So,
Sure.
okay. So let me get into the presentation mode. And here we go. So yeah, as Mohammed already mentioned, so the title today is making impactful lesson materials and some tips, 5 tips to make your lesson plans go above and beyond. So a little bit about me. I have about 10 years of teaching experience in Prague, Czech Republic, where I am right now. And so I received my TEFL certification here. And after I received my TEFL certification, I established my own private teaching practice, teaching adults and teens in group courses, individual one-to-one conversational lessons, focusing on business English. I went to some offices around Prague as well. And I also did some TEFL course training for a little bit as an observer. But I launched Fluentize in March 2018, and Fluentize was it just came naturally from my private teaching practice because I was creating a lot of materials, my own materials, and I was using video a lot as a resource in my lessons with my students. And my students really seemed to resonate with videos and the materials I was making based on the videos. And you can see here on the in the image here, these are some of my students from years ago, and that's Martin and Tomasz, and they were kind of my first Fluentize students, I guess you could say. So they experienced Fluentize. They were the first kind of testers of my lessons, and so they were part of the experiment in the beginning, and so. Yeah, a little bit about Fluentize. So as mentioned, we create modern, engaging, interactive ESL lesson plans based on real-world videos for English language teachers with teenage or adult students. And so right now we have about 380 lessons in the library. And today we're going to actually get into one of the lessons, and we're going to use one of the lessons as an example to base it on for the tips that we talked about, some of the 5 tips. So we're going to get into the first tip here. And this actually follows up a little bit about Ron's webinar, his recent webinar on graphic facilitation. And so we should never underestimate the power of images and visuals in our lesson. And it should be a part of almost any lesson you give, or, it can really help just make your lesson be a lot more powerful and have a lasting impact. And we can see a couple of the reasons there. So it creates engagement, it contextualizes the theme, and it inspires thought for students. And so the lesson plan that I'm going to feature today is actually based on Ramadan. It's about the lesson plan is based on a video about Ramadan, about the traditions, about the history, about the story of Ramadan. And so as you can see, the first part of the lesson, this is the preview activity before students watch the video on Ramadan. These are a couple of you can see on the right here, some of the traditions that Ramadan offers, right? That are a part of Ramadan. And these are some of the traditions that are mentioned in the video, right? So we're going to elicit some of the concepts, some of the traditions that are in the video. And image is just a very, using images, using visuals is just a really powerful way to do this. It really helps students to digest the lesson. If we make a lesson too heavily text-based, it becomes unappealing, overwhelming. And like I just said, it's tough for students to digest. And so the images really create that engagement for students. And it's so important to include them. Because a lot of students are visual learners, right? And it helps them process the information in a better way, in a more effective way. So, and also, it's important to mention when we're talking about the visuals here that it doesn't always have to mean images, right? Images, of course, help. We can see the images here. But if you just look down to part 2 there, where you're using arrows, or you can use charts, or you can use mind maps, you can use graphs. It depends on your lesson, on your topic, but it's important to realize that, you don't always have to think about visual as images. Images, of course, are the first thing we think about, but we can, of course, expand that and create different kinds of visuals for our students in order to engage them, contextualize the theme, and inspire thought. So, yeah, we're going to move to tip number 2 here, which is create or choose lesson materials with plenty of task variety. So what is task variety? Task variety is basically, we're going to mix up the types of activities that we're doing in the lesson plan, right? So, we don't want to fill a lesson too much with, with too many, multiple choice or gap fill, the same style of gap fill or matching activity. We want to vary the activities that we're doing with students. And the reason for that is because it makes the lessons balanced. It makes the lessons actually more engaging for the students as well. Because, when we repeat the same style of activity over and over again, what you're gonna see is probably a little bit of disengagement. It's not going to, create interest in the topic. You might have some students who kind of they get disinterested in some way, so it's good to make sure that, you're filling your lesson with different styles of activities. Try to vary the things you're doing, the tasks, the activities that you're doing. And you can see some of the options here. I mentioned mind maps already, with the visuals, describing images, we can see there. Predictions, we can see in part 3 here, there's a little bit of a prediction. It's, in this case, it's predict and write a short origin story of Ramadan using the words in order below. If you already know the story, use the words below to tell it. And this story, as we'll talk about, this story is a part of the video as well. So what this does, it also contextualizes the theme for students. And so having some kind of prediction in your lesson for whatever content you're working with, if you're working with a video or if you're working with a news article, it's good to give students like a little bit of a taste of what they're going to be, what kind of content, language content they're going to be interacting with, or they're going to be viewing, or they're going to be reading about. So that's just one of the things that you can do to create task variety is add things like predictions, open discussions, gap fills, comprehension, reflect, context or quotes, sentence conversion, and you want to also, encourage creativity. So good. Let's go to the next part here. Actually, sorry, but before we jump to the next part there, we are going to spend just a second on part 2 of the lesson plan. Because we also want to give students a little bit of, choice when it comes to the activities. We can see here, do you celebrate Ramadan? And we have the yes direction and the no direction. And this is important because we want the materials to be inclusive, right? So to provide both sides there, and to give students content to work with on both sides, if they celebrate Ramadan or not. That helps expand, who you can use, what kind of students you can use the lesson with, and it just makes it more inclusive. So it is really important, as you think on task variety, that you make the activities inclusive as well. So yeah, let's go to tip number 3 here, which is to pay attention to the lesson flow and scaffolding. So this is actually something that I've presented on before, and this is something that I always follow whenever I create a lesson plan, is you want to kind of create a roadmap for the lesson, right? We want to connect the pieces of the lesson plan. And that means that, as you do one task, you want it to lead nicely into the next task, which leads into the next task, which leads into the next one, So, this creates grounds for repetition of target language. It keeps students focused, engaged in on task. And this is all leading up to a specific language skill that we want students to acquire in the lesson, right? So you can see there in point number 2, build all of the tasks towards a final production task, which we'll get to in a minute. But basically, this is just making sure that, okay, when I create the first part of the lesson, what am I going to do in the second part of the lesson to help connect them together? So, when we're talking about Ramadan, sure, we could give them the images there where they talk about the Ramadan traditions, but, we don't want to jump too far and then go into another religion, just yet. We want to keep it focused on one theme here, one overarching theme, and connect the pieces together, right? So we are going to, once we view the lesson plan in full, you are going to see how the lesson plan pieces connect. So let's go to tip number 4 here, which is connected with the third one. Oops, sorry, I think we went back by accident. Yeah. Tip number 4 is we want to have clear task instructions and lesson objectives, right? And so try to keep everything clear and concise when it comes to the instructions, even if it's for higher level students. And this might be a little bit self-obvious, but of course, we don't want students to think too long or try to spend too much time grasping or comprehending what we actually want them to do, right? So one of the ways we can avoid that is to just really pay attention to making the instructions clear and concise. We can see here in one of the tasks, the religious observance task, that it's choose one of the 3 religious observances below by ticking one of the boxes, right? Nice, clear, and simple. Step 2, write the observance you chose below. Research the topics in the mind map associated with the observance. Use the internet to help you research the topics. Compare it to Ramadan. How is it similar to or different than Ramadan? Present your findings, right? Really, really clear. And as you can see here, again, we're continuing to use visuals. We're continuing to use the images to engage the students. And so this mind map here is another, and we talked about this earlier, it's another way to engage students. And it's another way to help create interest and engagement, right? Is when we visually display the information or the activity to the students. And so you can see here that the task is very visual, very easy to grasp and comprehend. And that's just due to clear, concise, but also specific instructions. And then also, part of this tip here is about the lesson objectives, which we talked about a little bit in the scaffolding as well, is that we want to point students towards a specific skill that we want them to acquire. And for me, it's even better if the skill is it's not just language oriented. They're not just learning about something about the language, but they're also learning about something about the world, right? They're learning about cultural, or in this case, religious awareness, right? So I really love to help students, create knowledge or build knowledge, on something outside of just, the language, instead of just, comprehension of vocabulary terms or grammar points. We want to teach them something new, maybe something that they didn't know before. And so that's something we want to pay attention to, as we create our materials and as we plan our lessons, is what else are students learning beyond the language? And this can really help strengthen your lesson and make it something that stands out and have an impact on your students. And so here we have the example lesson objective. By the end of this lesson, students will build religious awareness by learning about the history and traditions of Ramadan, researching other religious observances, and comparing them to Ramadan. So here we can see there's Lent, there's Yom Kippur, there is Shravan or Sawan, and students, they take their time, and they can you can have them work in groups. If it's a one-to-one lesson, you can give them 5-10 minutes, whatever they need, or you can assign it as homework to do to do this research task right here. And so before we get into the last tip here, we are going to dive into the actual lesson plan, because here we just kind of saw, some snippets of the lesson plan, because I want to show you, how those pieces connect and how to scaffold the lesson. Back when I was talking about tip number 4. So we're going to stop the share, and I'm going to actually share the lesson plan now, the PDF. So let's get into the full lesson plan so you can see it better. So here we have the we saw this already. We have the traditions, the Ramadan activities and traditions to engage the students. We talked a little bit about this part where students they discuss prior knowledge about Ramadan, how they celebrate Ramadan, what they know about it, etc. And then they write a short origin story of Ramadan. And if you notice here, so here we get into the video. So for time purposes, we're not going to watch the video, but it's just a short, it's a short 3-minute video, as mentioned, about the traditions and story of Ramadan. And you can see here in part 1, of the viewing activity, they watch the first minute of the video. The video goes into the story of Ramadan, and it uses these pieces of the these point, Muhammad, a cave, the angel Gabriel, Quran, so the video refers to each of these. And so, then students can do this here, they can check their predictions, they can check how similar their prediction story was to the preview part 3. And so again, that's scaffolding right there. That's connecting the pieces of the lesson together, and it creates a really nice cohesiveness for your lesson. This part here, write the correct group of words that fit the sentences from the video below. So this is a listening type of comprehension, right? And this connects to task variety, right? Where we have a listening comprehension exercise now, where it's kind of a more detailed comprehension exercise. So students have to write the groups of words that they hear. And there's a purpose for this activity, which we'll see later in the lesson. Describe the Ramadan tradition below. So this refers to fasting, of course, and students are going to learn about some of the specific practices related to fasting. And we can see here that we're chunking it too. So you can see here that the students watch the first minute of the video, then they continue the next part, the first minute to 1:41, and then they continue from that point. So it's important for students to take it, we want to take the lessons in pieces for students. We want to break the pieces of the lesson down, break the pieces of the video down that you use, break the pieces of the article down that you use, just to make it more digestible for the students. And then, of course, at the end, there's a part about the celebration that Muslims do for this, which is Eid. And there's some information about that. And so this is the viewing follow-up, what students do after the video. They have some discussion. How important do you think it is to learn about religions outside of our own? Again, this is connected. This is connected towards that final task of the where they research the other religious observances, right? Have you ever tried fasting for religious or personal reasons? Again, this is connected to the some of the video information. Another part that goes into the fasting practices. There's a quote from the video. Again, what we're viewing here is task variety, all different kinds of tasks that students can do to keep them engaged. And we introduced this term that was this was an actual quote from the video. And students learn what it means to perform a generous act. They infer it from the context, right? They think of a time that they performed a generous act, right? So we're checking this, concept check questions for the students. And then I even, this is a new thing I'm actually exploring with some of my lessons is giving students, this video here, this ties into generous acts, right? It's a short commercial of a boy, and he sees a man celebrating Ramadan on his own. It's an older man. He's not with his family. And so he organizes some kind of surprise feast for this old man. And it's a commercial for something, but it's short. It's like 30 or 40 seconds. And in the video, the boy performs a generous act, so again, we're connecting we're connecting these pieces of the lesson, we're connecting the pieces together. And this goes into all of those parts of the lesson are tied towards this final production task, right? We can also call it an activation, right? And so we talked about this a little bit, where students choose one of the religious observances, and then they're completing these topics in the mind map. And so, they had words in the lesson like holy book, they had fasting practices, they talked about the foods, they talked about how there's generous acts as a part of the Ramadan traditions. They talked about the celebration at the end of Ramadan, who it's observed by. So again, we are connecting, we're connecting the pieces here. And this is what I mean by scaffolding. So we're going to get back to the actual presentation here. And the last and final tip, which would be, let's get to it here. Integrate critical thinking and creative skills into your lesson somehow, right? So instead of just, having students working with the vocabulary, learning new vocabulary, like, generous acts, or, comprehension activities where they're listening to the video and they're writing some of the phrases that they heard, we want to point them towards something where they're using some of the skills. In this case, it was some Lexis based on Ramadan, right? The holy book, the fasting practices, the generous acts. So we want to kind of filter or funnel this, actually is the better word, into some kind of production phase where students are integrating critical thinking and creative skills. So, this could be role playing, interviewing, reviewing something, debating, speeches, comparing. And this is the one that we utilized in the Ramadan lesson. Is there actually the next two, comparing and researching, right? So actually in the opposite order, they're researching and then comparing it to Ramadan. And then they're also, they're presenting it too. They're going to present their findings to the teacher, to the class, so you can kind of, in a lesson, you can combine, some of these storytelling, and this is something that we touched upon, in the prediction, is that, the telling of the story, and then students also hear the story, so combining some of these critical thinking and creative skill elements will really help students develop their skills for the real world. It'll help students develop the target language, because this is what they're going to be using the language for, right? Maybe they meet somebody, during their travels, and they get into a conversation about, Ramadan or Lent or whatever, and they can, then they have the skill to be able to talk, compare the observance that they follow with, a peer of theirs or a friend of theirs, or, something like that. So, we want to think about some activities that are practical for our students that could actually help prepare them for using some of these language points, Lexis, grammar, whatever, in real world scenarios, right? So this is kind of the point here, is that we want the pieces of the lesson to funnel into some kind of skill that we want students to learn and be able to use in the real world. And so these types of production activities really help students to do that. All the ones you can see on the screen here. So luckily, we have one more little bonus tip here. So, and this is prepare even for pre-made lessons. Don't be afraid to add your own twist to the lesson. Don't be afraid to take, if you have a pre-made lesson, like, one of these lessons from Fluentize or any other resource, take a look at the lesson beforehand. Don't just download the lesson and, without looking at it, and then you go and you do it. Think about how can I add my own teaching style to it? How can I add my own, maybe I can adjust this activity, or maybe for this student, this activity actually doesn't fit. So I'm going to leave this activity out. Or creating your own kind of follow-up activity, to the activities already presented here. Building upon some of the language already present in the lesson plan, right? So maybe, if they learn some words, you can do things like touch upon the parts of speech for some of the vocabulary words, if you have time permitting. Facilitate extra discussion, ask them follow-up questions, ask them questions that aren't in the lesson plan. Expand some of you, add some of your own ingredients into it, and your own ideas to supplement the lesson. And then what I like to do is I like to review at the end of the lesson. I like to go back with the students and review some of the things that some of the language that they learned in the lesson, whether it's lexis, whether it's grammar, phrases, going back, doing a little bit in the Fluentize lesson plans. They come equipped with quiz and review activities where, we just go back and we check their comprehension. We might ask them, okay, what's a generous act? What are some examples of a generous act? Or we could do that at the beginning of the next lesson. So repeating things for our students, of course, is always effective. We want to really drill it in the quiz, and some kind of quiz and review reflection really helps to kind of drill in some of those important language points that we want students to acquire in the lesson. And why? Yeah, as mentioned, it will take your lesson above and beyond. So yeah, let's get to, so again, this lesson is, this is one of our more recent lessons, the Ramadan one. So this is the one featured on Fluentize. You can find all of the lessons on site. We have about 20 free lessons that you can download if you just register an account. And then the total library has about 380 lessons. And the levels range from pre-intermediate, intermediate, upper to advanced, from A2 to C1. The Ramadan lesson we did today, that's a B1 lesson. As we can see here, it's an intermediate level lesson. Here are a couple of the other lessons. I just finished this one today, the April Fool's Day lesson, how to build mental strength. We have one on ChatGPT, which was a big hit lesson, bigger than I expected. So that was a good topic to hit. So feel free to check out the site. It's free to register. And when you register, as mentioned, you do get 20 free lesson plans, access to them. And every month we do also release a couple, maybe one or two, limited time free lessons, so if you're on our subscriber mailing list, you'll get the announcements for those freebie lessons that we do for limited time freebies. And for anyone attending, for anyone who watches the webinar today, you can use this promo code here. If you end up deciding to go on and get some of the lessons that we offer in our lesson library, we have a full access subscription. We also have a couple different lesson packages where you can buy 1 lesson, you can buy 5 lessons, you can buy 10 lessons. If you enter this promo code, you'll get a 20% off on any lesson package or full access subscription that you decide. And so, of course, that's up to you. It's there. It's Educast 20. And that's for you to use on some lessons if you decide you like the lessons and they're useful for you. So yeah, thank you for your attention. Happy lesson planning. Again, my name is Jake with Fluentize, and I think we have some time here if anybody would like to ask any questions. So we can kind of open that up. I'll stop the share.
Yeah, that's a wonderful presentation, Jake. Thank you.
Thank you.
So guys, guys.
Yes, that was great, Jake. It's so compact, right to the point. It's just great. I'd like to add that there was some things you mentioned, and maybe I want to touch on it and ask you some questions about it.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned that the lesson plans from Fluentize are based on videos from YouTube.
Right.
And I'd like to just add that one of the great things about using YouTube for lessons is that we can flip the classroom with that. We can show them the video before the class. That's a good thing we can do. So they have some time and they're not under stress They watch the video, but they don't know what questions we're going to ask them.
Right.
That,
Right.
yeah. So that's just them. But another thing I like about YouTube is that the listener can actually slow it down, if it's going too fast for them. So they have to learn how to use the different options of YouTube. And that's also good. I think that was good.
Definitely,
Yeah. And there's another good point about using YouTube, I'd like to say, is that, a lot of learners, when we're teaching them listening, they need visuals with listening, they really do. And that's just another, point that's great about the lesson plans that you're talking about, your lesson plans, is because you've got the video, the learner can slow the video down according to their listening comprehension skills, and they can use closed caption as well. Those are all those great things about that. So I think that's what's really good about it, and that we can flip the classroom with that. But, Jake, you chose Ramadan today, and, it's Ramadan. And, I think that that was a very good choice because, all of us come from different backgrounds. But, when I was, I work a lot with, people from different, countries. And I always found that there was always that lack in course books sometimes. There's that gap. Where they don't talk about, all the religions. And, my students want to talk about their culture. They want to talk about their background. And so I'm glad that you showed us that that possibility exists, that, through Fluentize, that they can find different things that we can add to the lesson for us to share our culture, our traditions, our religious beliefs, and teach other people about that as well. So teaching can be learning, and learning can be teaching.
At 100%. Yeah. I mean, and this is part of what I love being a materials writer like this, is all of the research that I do myself. And, I'm even learning as well. And so that ties into exactly what you said. And yeah, I do also like what you said about how, yes, video, you can do things on YouTube. They have a, kind of an interface that does allow videos to be accessible. And with the, doing things like either slowing down the speed of the video or turning on or off the captions, we can use this to either aid or challenge the students, right? So depending on their levels. So we can sometimes we can use videos that are a little bit, if they're played at the normal speed, it's too challenging, but we can slow them down to be able to accommodate or aid maybe a student that wouldn't be able to comprehend that video, right? So that's also a really good point. Is video is flexible to some degree, right?
Jake, when you presented the lesson plan about Ramadan, I don't know if that was intentional, but what level would you say that lesson was geared towards? Was it B1, B2, C1?
Yeah, that one was definitely, like definitely a perfect B1. Yeah, you could probably do that also with the B2. That video itself, I know we didn't watch it in the presentation, but the speech was really clear. The visuals are great in the video, so that also aids it. So, that it definitely suitable, that one for a B1 student, definitely.
Now, when somebody goes to Fluentize, your internet site, I'm so glad that you mentioned that if they sign up, they can get access to 20 free lessons. That's a wonderful and very generous of you to offer that. Do they get to pick, like maybe me, I might only be working with B1, B2 learners. So do I get to pick the levels that I want? Are the lesson plans in different levels?
Yeah, they are. Yeah, every lesson is categorized, depending on the level. And this is just based on, the level, assessing the level is just based on judgment with me and my other lesson plan writers who I collaborate with. And so sometimes a lesson can kind of straddle, two levels, that a lot of the lessons are marked, for example, A to B1.
Yeah, what are the categories? That was my question, was what are the categories?
Sorry, you mean levels or like topic?
Yeah, no, the categories of levels, I mean, yeah, the language levels.
So we have A2, which is pre-intermediate. We have a B1 intermediate, B2 upper intermediate, C1 advanced. And as mentioned, some do straddle, B1 and B2 or B2 and C1. And this is because, even when we have, let's say, a B2 or a C1 student, maybe they're on the lower end of C1, maybe they're on the higher end of B2, so sometimes the lessons can, depending on your student, and this is where it comes down to your background or your knowledge of your students, okay, after you've done some lessons with your student, you should have a gauge of about where they're at, of what kind of lesson or video, etc. What kind of materials you can use with that specific student,
And Jake, I want to make one more comment. I really like that, I'm really into methodology, okay? And good lesson plans, you got it when you design them, you got to think about, you use the word flow, and that was just like a light went off in my head, because sometimes, we as teachers, we forget how important that is. And, I like the way you added to flow is scaffolding, chunking, funneling. Those are all great. And when we talk about methodology, we also not talk about, how we're going to put that together when we're designing the lesson. And I know that you and your lesson planners really think about that. It's obvious, yeah, with the way the lessons look.
Definitely.
But, if I'm a teacher who's using task-based learning or project-based learning, would you recommend these lessons for someone like me who's using TBL and PBL?
Yeah, you can, it all comes down to, what you're looking for, what your curriculum is, or what you need to, your student needs, their interests, there are, of course, in the lesson plans themselves, they do kind of inherently have, they're inherently built for task-based learning.
Product development, yeah.
Right. So, we can see with that, with the research task, the presentation task, right? So we have a kind of, task-based learning exercise there. So yeah, it does. And there's lesson descriptions on site, when you go to you can read about the lesson, you can see what's in the lesson, and then, you can make the judgment of whether, okay, this is something that I'm looking for, right? These are the types of activities that I'm looking for. This is the type of task that I'm looking for. So.
Now, you mentioned Ramadan today, but I'm pretty sure you have other lesson plans about maybe other religions as well. Is that correct?
Actually, this was one of the first ones, maybe the first one that we touched on for religious holiday. We do have a lot of, we have things like Valentine's Day, that's not really a religious holiday, St. Patrick's.
Well, for some people it is.
For some people, you're right. For some people it is. In some parts of the world, it's just not, it's not celebrated that, it's more of like a commercial holiday or whatever. And so this was the first one where it was like really specifically focused on a religious observance, and that's why I saw the potential there to also, okay, let's expand on Ramadan and let's compare it with a couple other of the religious observances out there, like Lent, Yom Kippur, etc. It's because it is so healthy for students to build things like religious awareness or cultural awareness in the lessons, and we want to make the lessons inclusive. We want the lessons to reach wide audiences of teachers and learners. And so exploring these kind of.
We want people sharing. We want people sharing their traditions, their ideas, their beliefs and culture. That's fantastic. I think that. Jake, I have one last question for you.
Sure.
And then I'll turn this over to Mo. Sorry, Mo, I just jumped in there.
No, it's okay.
But you said that you have a team that puts the lessons together. And you said that you had over 380 lessons already available. They're on your site, which is fantastic. And are you looking for maybe other people to join your team? Like people from other countries that maybe could, add to your team. Is that happening, as you're growing?
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Looking for lesson writers is hard because these are really kind of niched style, that you can see the style of the lesson and everything is really niched, and you have to know the software to create the lesson and everything. So it's quite hard to find lesson writers for the team. Right now it's three of us right now. It's me, Silvina, and Cecilia, and so we collaborate together on not every single lesson, but on some of the lessons. And yeah, another lesson writer is something that would help a lot. And it's
they got to know about materials writing. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is the thing is that materials writing, it's something that takes a lot of time to get good at. It takes, just because we're teachers doesn't mean we're good materials writers. You can be a good teacher, but you're just not a good material writer. And that's how I was in the beginning. Is my lessons were not good in the beginning, and I feel like, it has taken me a lot of time to get to a point where, okay, my lesson writing is good, even this is what I do full time now, so it is hard to find, the right people for, a niched kind of English language product like this. But yes, definitely, that's something in the future that we're looking to do, is add more lesson writers with time. Yeah.
And for everyone who's still here with us, I want to say that I did add the link to Fluentize in the chat box so that you could go to the internet site and check it out. I have to say that when I first met Jake, I was like, oh, wow, this is great. This is so, easy. It's so well put together, easy to navigate. We can find the lessons because you got that under topics. Like entertainment, technology, sports, whatever. So, I highly recommend it. And thanks, Jake, for coming on today. And I'm glad that I came today because I wanted to listen to, what it was all about. So I found it very interesting. And thank you for inviting people and sharing those 20 free lessons with teachers around the world.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Ron. I appreciate your efforts as well, Mohammed, and everybody who attended and who's watching this webinar and who will watch it. Really appreciate the attention.
Yeah, thank you,
Mohammed. I'm going to turn that back over to you.
Yeah, thank you. Finally. Okay, well, it was wonderful, really wonderful, and I can see Mark here. Mark, are you there? Mark. Yeah. Okay, so we might be facing, technical issues. So guys, thanks everyone for joining us. Let me remind you that one of our sponsors is Text Inspector, and they offer all of the attendees of our event a free trial for 1 month. Okay, so I'm gonna let you see the video, and please make sure that you take a screenshot of the QR code, scan it later so that you can, get this chance. So let me show you the video.
Text Inspector is the award-winning professional online tool that allows you to accurately and comprehensively analyze written and spoken texts for teaching, testing, and research purposes. Based on up-to-date, in-depth linguistic research, it uses statistically significant metrics, including lexical diversity, meta-discourse markers, and lexical sophistication, alongside tools such as the British National Corpus and the English Vocabulary Profile, to provide a detailed, accurate, and informative analysis of language use. This allows you to accurately assess the productive skills of your language students according to the CEFR and develop effective learning and assessment materials with greater ease. Some researchers have used Text Inspector to track improvements in their students' writing skills over time, others to ensure examination materials are at the correct level. Text Inspector is trusted by organisations including Cambridge University Press and the staff and students at 145 universities and colleges across the world. Why not try it yourself? We're offering all conference attendees premium access for free.
Yes. Okay. So, again, thank you for attending with us today. This was the third webinar of our event, Elevate Your Teaching Practice. And we're looking forward to seeing you again in our fourth webinar. Let me share with you the full program to tell you about our next guest. Okay, let me share the screen. You know, Dr. Ron, Jake, and Mark, it's always, a pleasure to be with people from different parts of the world, learning together. Read before that everything that we do, everything that we face, everything that we go through is a learning experience in itself, right? So, like the conference, our previous conference that was, last February, it was a very good learning experience, and I think this is, another wonderful learning experience, right?
And I want to say that, Mohammed, we need to make sure that Jake is interested and maybe he wants to come to Cairo to do a workshop for us.
Yeah, that's right. We hope so, yeah. So guys, that was, the third webinar of our event, Elevate Your Teaching Practice. See you in the first, on the 1st of April, in 2 days, because no, on 3 days, in 3 days at 8:30 p.m. With Cecilia, and I think she's one of the materials right at Fluent Ties, right, Jay?
Yes, that's her. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. And of course we had, Silvina in a previous webinar last year. So we had all of you here with us in Educast International.
Awesome.
So it's always a pleasure working with you and collaborating with, especially in spreading knowledge and our expertise everywhere with those wonderful teachers. So Cecilia will be talking about video-based observation for teachers and teacher trainers. So we will be looking forward to seeing you on the 1st of April. Again, it's 8:30 Cairo time. So thanks again. Thank you, Dr. Ron. Thank you, Jake. Thank you, Mark.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, Mark is finally here. Yeah, great. Thank you, and see you on April. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.